road in terms of our reserves. This is a good story. Gotta maintain our reserves.
Supervisors together. Pledge allegiance, Supervisor Watt.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everybody to our Board of Supervisors meeting on August the 19th. First item of business, approve the minutes of the July. Oh, we'll do a roll call. Yeah.
Mr. Conover.
Here.
Mr. Leggett.
Here.
Mr. Diamond.
Here.
Mr. McDevitt.
Here.
Asleep at the wheel.
Ms. Bramer. Here. Mr. Bruno.
Here.
Mr. Driscoll.
Here.
Mrs. Frazier. Here. Mr. Drossy.
Here.
Ms. Hogan. Here. Mr. Dickinson.
I'm here.
Mr. Merlino. Mr. Stroud.
Here.
Mr. Wild.
Here.
Mr. McGowan.
Here.
Ms. Seaver. Here. Mr. Beatty.
Here.
Mr. Thomas.
Here.
Ms. Runyon. Chairman Garrity.
Here.
Quorum is established.
First item of business, approve the minutes of the July 29, 2022 meeting. We have a motion. By Supervisor Frazier. Do we have a second by Supervisor Stroud? Any discussions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Aye.
Next, we have the Employee Month Award. This month, I think it's somebody we all know. If you don't know her, then you don't go by the front door too often. But anyways, I'm gonna ask the tourism group to come up. It's Maggie Cafaro. Maggie? Congratulate you on this offer, this.
I have a little something that you're, so.
We can write it.
No, I didn't write it. Actually, Paul provided the basics, but obviously everyone here knows Maggie. I mean, she's an institution here. If you've come in this building, you've seen and talked to her, and she's a, I'm not saying that, 23, 24, probably. 28, okay. But anyway, Maggie's been here for 19 years, working here downstairs and also over at the Adirondack Outlet Mall spot for a few years. And thousands of people have gotten their tourism information from her over the years. She answers the phones. She, according to Paul, she does all kinds of clerical work, preparing documents, proofreading. So there's a lot of unseen work that Maggie has done. And we all know she's kind of always been a smiling face and a fun conversation to have downstairs whenever we walk through. So we all nominated her, and we were glad that she was selected by the committee. So congratulations, Maggie.
My honor to give this to her. I came 16 years ago and Maggie's always been at the front office. You want to say anything to the group?
Look at.
Thank you,
Back to work.
We had several members of the county complete leadership training this past month, and I'm going to read their names. Amy McBurn, Director of Countryside Adult Home. Elizabeth Burke, Supervising Social Services Investigator. Candace Groff, Social Service Examiner. Rebecca Hill, Principal Social Welfare Examiner. Tara Kelly, Senior Welfare Examiner. Josette Kill, Social Service Welfare Examiner. Mary Fiber, Principal Social Services Examiner. Ashley McKinney, Senior Social Services Examiner. And Karen Witten, Principal Social Services Examiner. Congratulations to all those who completed the leadership training. Next, I'll open up privilege of floor and public comment. Anybody wish to address the board today? Yes, sir. State your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Bob Dillon. I'm a recent transplant back to Warren County in the town of Lake George. Formerly was 21 years over in Hartford as deputy town supervisor, town councilman, and chair of the Democratic Party. And I was born and raised in Glens Falls, Queensbury. In fact, I went to Queensbury Elementary School with Mr. Strauch. I'm here today because in the last few weeks, I've read a number of articles about the tourism department and a lot of the issues. One of the articles in the Chronicle last week by Kathy Deedy struck me as a little bit odd about the way that the suggested person who is now going to be appointed as your tourism director was hired. She implied that there was no qualified candidate in the first round, and Mr. Snow was also in the first round, but he didn't meet the requirements of a four-year degree. So you scrapped the whole process, rewrote the job description, taking that out and put it out again. My concern is there were no candidates in the second round that were qualified. I know for a fact that there was at least one, and they were not contacted nor interviewed. So I have a very uneasy feeling of why we're bringing a Florida transplant to Warren County when you have people here who have extensive background and decades of experience, both in tourism and just growing up here and meeting people. So I would like to suggest that you table the approval today and reopen the process and do it in a transparent way. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to address the board today? Okay, we'll move on to chairman's report.
Mr. Chairman,
We're gonna move on to chairman's.
I did have a comment privilege of the floor.
About this topic or something.
Privilege of the floor, according to our resolution 312 of
I understand
25,
the
can be
rules.
about anything.
Do you have something to say?
I do.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be heard at the time.
Internet
Mr. Dickens,
connection is.
you're off mute. Usual. Thank you. I do have comments for today during privilege of the floor, and I bring this up to my colleagues here today and to the public to recognize the fact that the board agenda has a privilege of the floor on it, but committees do not before we vote on issues. We've all been notified about the open meeting laws and our continual violation of open meeting laws. As a member who does not sit on the majority of committees, but yet represents the majority of residents, I am concerned that we do not have an opportunity to be heard before privilege of the floor, which comes after the votes in committee. Here today, we do afford the public an opportunity to be heard about anything at all when it comes to privilege of the floor. So I'm asking that this board consider putting privilege of the floor in our committee agendas to provide the public with a transparent and accountable process, but also other board members who are not members of the committee, that they also be given the opportunity to be heard. That being said, for these 3 to 5 minutes that I have, as not only a elected, but a resident, I do have a few comments for privilege of the floor that are unrelated to any resolutions that I plan on speaking about later. My concern here is that on August 10th at approximately 10:54, I heard from members of this board and a personnel committee that in fact, if we voted no on issues before us, specific issues at times, we were considered obstructionist. That some members considered this to be personal, a personal attack or a personal vote. And I just want to be clear here with this board today that I'm very well aware of what a personal attack is. I myself have been personally attacked by numerous members of our community, of our board, for decisions that are made that I feel are in the best interest of our constituents. My husband, my children have been attacked. Most recently, my degree in going from an all but dissertation to an education and higher administration doctorate that I defended and published on August 10th. I recently was told in being personally attacked that I waddle like a duck, that my glasses are fake. I want to be really clear that we have hit a new low and our board is broken. And in the beginning of the year, we heard about civility and working together. And I hope that moving forward, that we be very clear with each other that our votes here today are not personal. I can handle personal attacks. I've been handling them for years. What I can't handle is not having an opportunity to represent my community. And that is what I was elected for, and that is what I am here for. And I will not be subject to being called for a censure, for being told I'm aggressive, for being asked to sit down and shut up, for being in an environment that is completely inappropriate and unprofessional. I expect that every single member of this board will work together and move forward. I've heard our supervisors from Glens Falls talk about all of us working together to get along. So I would ask here today that that nonsense stops. That today, when members vote no or they abstain, they are doing it because they believe it is in the best interest of their constituents, and we should all be treated with respect and dignity. I appreciate the opportunity for privilege of the floor, and I certainly hope we'll continue to extend that to members and to members of the public. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to comment? Okay, I'll do the chairman's report. Attended many committee meetings, July 15th, Personnel Administration, Higher Education. Also, the Board of Supervisors meeting on the 15th, July 18th, Criminal Justice, Public Safety, Health Services, Human Services, and Tourism Committee. On the 19th, attended County Facilities, Public Works, Park O&M, Growth and Economic Growth and Development Legislative and Rules Committee. On the 29th, Personnel and Administration, Higher Education Committee meeting. On the 29th, also attended the second Board of Supervisors July meeting. August 1st, attended Oxy-Tech meeting and the final tourism interview. August 2nd, attended Association of Towns and Villages meeting in Minerva. August 12th, attended Summer Youth Picnic at Eastfield Pavilion. August 15th, attended county budget meetings. On the 16th, attended county budget meetings. And at this time, I'd like to recognize all the summer youth employment members who received awards and certificates, and also the staff that managed the program, along with the various towns and businesses. Good job done by us. Thank you. Also, at this time, I'd like to recognize Supervisor Seaver from Queensbury, who was named Vice Chair of the Justice and Public Safety Steering Committee at the recent NACO conference held in Colorado. Congratulations to Ms. Seaver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And also, I have two 20-year anniversaries this month. The first one is Lisa Morton of Public Health, and the second one is Daniel Clifford of the Sheriff's Department Corrections Division. Congratulations to both of them. And that concludes the chairman's report. Report by committee chairs. Supervisor Wild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before the board today are two resolutions from the Economic Growth and Development Committee, 396, 397. They're both related to workforce and the workforce development activities. 396 is the 2022-2023 budget, and 97 is the online training service that we provide to our citizens. I would respectfully request that the board support these resolutions. And 719, Economic Growth and Development, net. A couple of key things. We heard from Jim Sipline, Warren County, new business growth. In 2021, there were 625 new businesses that were registered in Warren County. Year-over-year change was 45% to the good. And it puts Warren County in the top 10 within New York State in terms of new business registrations. Next week coming up, and I haven't had confirmation with this, but there's an issue related to the climate bill that was passed by New York State, National Grid, and hopefully the National Association of Counties or the state. I'm not sure which one, but we expect to have some more information at the Economic Growth and Development Committee on that, and hopefully many of you can attend and listen to these concerns. One last thing, septic replacements. We've got this program going on for a year now. 18 out of the 36 planned have been completed. And that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Seaver. April.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we all know, there's a NISAC conference that's coming up. We're very excited to have some issues that will be on the resolutions for members on committees that have been discussed over the last year. So please mark your calendars if you can make it to the NISAC meeting. I think that's a well we certainly get our money out of that conference. And I wanted to report briefly on the NACO conference. I haven't had the opportunity to do that since I got back. I did attend for a long weekend, a conference at NACO. And I wanted to just highlight some of the information that came out of that I think is important for our members, but we will be having a NACO and NISAC committee meeting in the upcoming weeks that I think we can duplicate or forward for consideration some of the resolutions that came out of NACO and then look at some of those that are coming up in NISAC. I was fortunate enough, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, regarding the congratulations for the Justice and Public Safety Standing Committee. I've been a member of that for 3 years now, but I also have an opportunity now to serve as vice chair in the Membership Standing Committee, as well as the Resilient Counties Advisory Board. I was appointed to 3 other committees as well. And fortunately, I do have the time now to be able to be a very vocal and active constituent for all counties in New York, but specifically Warren County at the NACO and NISAC conferences. I want to bring your attention to the fact that there is an opioid task force that has now been formed out of NACO that we have an opportunity to be involved in. So for those of you on those committees, that might be something you'd like to apply to be on that committee. There was a mental health toolkit that we discussed at ARPA, which we'll be hearing more about in the upcoming weeks. And in particular, I think it was important to talk a little bit about the different types of awards and recognitions that the counties have been honored for. I think we do a lot of really wonderful things here. Our staff that work very, very hard on different initiatives. I'd like to see us bringing those forward and providing that recognition and hard work as the best practices to the rest of the country. So we'll be looking to do that, as well as nominate some department heads to attend training that we've already put money in the budget for. So I'm hopeful that at our committee meeting, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But it was a very good conference, lots of important issues. I did bring handouts back for several members of the board on those committees, and I look forward to continuing to attend their trainings. Thank you.
Supervisor Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Personnel Committee met on July 29th and also on August 10th. And from those 2 meetings, 8 resolutions are in your packet, 412 through 419. 412 is creating and deleting a account clerks and also a help desk technician, temporary position in information technology. 413 is decreasing the salary of the 8th public defender by $2,101. 414 is creating 3 patrol officer positions for security in the municipal building and the human services building. 415 is from probation, and that's increasing the base salary of the administrative secretary to be more in line with her qualifications that she possesses. 416 is a resolution to appoint Alfred Snow, Director of Tourism. 417 is an interim salary increase for non-bargaining unit employees. Minus 13 employees that were on that list that are done by local law. 418 is the introduction of a local law number 3 for 2022 to cover those 13 employees. And the last one, 419, is appointments to the ARPA committee. Tricia Rogers from the Adirondack Regional Chamber of Commerce and whoever the county administrator is, acting or otherwise. And that was it for personnel. The budget committee has not met, but we did start with the budget reviews on Monday, on the 15th. The 15th and the 16th, we've done 9 departments. There's 25 left. Stay tuned.
Supervisor Conover.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. DPW committee met on July 19th, represented in your packets by resolutions 406, 407, and 408, and 409, and also represented in your packet under finance 422, 423, and 424. I believe they're all pretty straightforward financial resolutions. Mr. Hajo is here to answer any questions. I'd like to thank Supervisor Dickinson for stepping up and chairing that meeting in my absence. And then with that, I just would turn it over to Dennis if he has any further comments.
Supervisor Dixon, anything to add?
My internet is very unstable. You're going in and out. I'm sure I am as I speak to you. I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Is that it?
That concludes my
Supervisor
report.
Leggett, Finance and EMS.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Finance Committee met on the July 29th. Before your resolutions 386 and 387. And then resolutions 420 through 427, they're on pages 5 and 6 of the index. You will see that resolutions number 422 and 423, they go with the ARPA resolution 389. Resolutions 425 and 426 go with personnel resolutions 417 and 418. Put down 19, but it should be 18, I think. And 427 goes with occupancy tax resolutions 406 and 407. And that's my report for finance.
Supervisor, any EMS?
EMS committee has not met, but we are planning a meeting now that we have more towns that are adopting tax districts to see what position that puts us in.
Okay. Okay, Supervisor McDevitt.
Yes, yesterday, our Warren County Local Development Corporation organization met. Included in that group yesterday was Supervisor Wild, Supervisor Leggett, Supervisor Berliner, Supervisor McGowan, and Travis Whitehead as director, and Bob Landry from Glens Falls. There is one specific issue that I think is a county issue that is obviously of great concern and importance to all, and that has to do with childcare. Our LDC is with Mr. Siflon's direction and approval is working with Lisa Ossendorf and Lynn Sickles to basically isolate and provide some needs within Warren County, some communities that may be underserved in the area of childcare, and to basically provide some advice and counsel to potential providers of childcare in our county. Childcare, as I'm sure all of us know, is a highly regulated industry by the state of New York, as it should be. In addition to that, the major component of providing a pro forma and a business plan to people is important. So I think what we're going to see is a plan, a roadmap, and some counsel to provide potential providers of childcare in Warren County, and again, hopefully within the next couple of months, we'll see a roadmap and a plan in place to again provide direction, input, and counsel to potential providers in all of the communities in Warren County. Thank you.
Supervisor Brammer. ARPA.
Thank you. The ARPA committee met on August 9th, and as was reported then, we received 84 applications for the remaining ARPA funds. That totaled $22 million in requests. That was from several businesses seeking restoration of funds that they lost during the pandemic, and numerous not-for-profits from throughout the county, including mostly Queensbury, Warrensburg, Glens Falls. We also had some requests from county departments as well as Warren County EDC. And as an important request from Habitat for Humanity for a new housing project. I also do want to mention that there was resolution 419, with which my colleague who chairs the personnel committee mentioned. And I would at the appropriate time ask for that to be tabled, as Ms. Rogers is not available to participate. She's getting her feet on the ground and she really wants to focus on leading the ARCC through the next couple of months. And we have a significant amount of work to get done between now and our next meeting, which is not until the end of September, for each one of the committee members to score the applications and come back with all of those results to really dive in and do a good job assessing all the applications and awarding the rest of the money that we have. And on that note, there are 2 other resolutions allocating money earlier in your resolution packet. I'm sure you've seen those. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Bruno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The County Facilities Committee met on Tuesday, July 19th. There are 2 resolutions in the packet. One is 390 regarding the airport. That's authorizing agreement with the EAA Chapter 353 for use of Warren County Floyd Bennett Memorial Airport to hold a Young Eagles flying event. That's, I think you all saw this flyer. This is a great event for everyone, especially young people. And hope you'll support that. The other one is Resolution 420. That's a roll call vote. That's authorizing the appropriation of funds from the Airport Repair and Project Reserve Fund to the Department of Public Works budget to upgrade self-service fuel system at the Warren County Airport, amending 2022 Warren County budget. That's a very necessary upgrade. And if Robin Mapp was here, I'm sure he would speak to that. And Superintendent Hajos, I don't see either one, but I hope you'll support that one as well. Additionally, I met with Superintendent Hajos on Monday, August 8th, and Mr. Wallace of the Buildings and Codes Department on August 11th, and Mr. Waddell, the Weights and Measures Department, on August 11th as well, to review their preliminary budgets for 2023. Let's see. We had a report from Mr. Rogers, Scott Rogers, on the work order request program, fleet car request program, and the countryside adult home project. Those were all positive. And additionally, there was a referral from the Criminal Justice Public Safety Committee. Discussion was held with regard to Director of Facilities to pursue the temporary installation of a magnetometer at the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles entrance, contingent upon availability of a unit from the state. Needham Risk Management representatives have been invited and will appear at the next committee meeting to discuss their safety recommendations. And unless anyone has any questions, that concludes my report.
Okay. Supervisor Jessica, Human Services.
Thank you, Chairman. The Human Services Committee met on Monday, July 18th. From that meeting came resolutions 402 and 403. They're both related to the Youth Bureau. The Youth Bureau is another example of working with Washington County along with the Veteran Services, which also does the same. The next meeting will be Monday, August 22nd, beginning at or about 10:15 a.m. We'll be discussing matters regarding social services and countryside adult home. As is my practice, earlier this week, I emailed an update that Commissioner Hanchett sent to me regarding the activities and events of DSS mid-July to mid-August. Thank you to all the department heads who are here, including John Bowe from Cornell Cooperative Extension of Warren County. Cooperative Extension is near hiring 2 very important positions for vacancies, and hopefully by the end of this month, those 2 individuals will be in place. Their upcoming annual golf tournament is still looking for a few more golfers and possibly a few more volunteers if people are so inclined. That's a week from tomorrow up at Cronin's in Warrensburg. And finally, I want to recognize all of the DSS employees who graduated from the county's leadership training program. I think that's a wonderful testimony of the fact that our employees take their jobs and responsibilities seriously. earlier this week, I accompanied a family from the Ukraine to the Department of Social Services. I've already reached out to social services and county officials, thanking them for the professionalism, the empathy, and just the seamless assistance that was provided. They really, there was a lot of research, telephone calls, emails to make sure that they got it right. It's not like, you know, you do a family from the Ukraine every day. These are three women. Two of them have degrees. The 23-year-old who speaks English better than some of my friends has a bachelor's degree, and the government just makes it very difficult for these individuals to begin work. If they had their way, they would have started yesterday. But eventually, I'm confident that both will be the 23-year-old and the 61-year-old mother will be working, contributing to the community, just as another Ukraine family that live in the Fifth Ward have working full-time at the hospital, volunteering with the local not-for-profit, and really becoming the fabric of the community that we envision for ourselves. And finally, I want to recognize Janet Pratt, who I haven't had an opportunity to meet, but Janet also works for the Department of Social Services, and she was one of the recipients of the PostStar's 20 Under 40 that was published in this morning's Post-Star, and I congratulate her, as well as all of the other 19 individuals. These are the community leaders of tomorrow, and let's do our best to try to hold on to them, keep them working in this region rather than going elsewhere with their time and talents. Thank you.
Supervisor Brady, Health Service.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Health Services met on July the 18th, and from that meeting, we have 4 resolutions, 398 through 401. 398 authorizes the Director of Warren Hamilton counties to submit the annual update to the 4-year implementation plan. 399 authorizes submission of a grant application to the New York State Office of the Aging, New York Connects. 400 authorizes an agreement with Hudson Headwaters to provide healthcare provider services to cover the public health referrals and clinics. And 401 authorizes an agreement with Marissa Defoe to provide pharmaceutical consultant services as required by New York State. And that's all I have, and thank you.
Supervisor Drossy, Criminal Justice, Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee met on Monday, July 18th. We have 5 resolutions for your consideration today, 391 through 395, and 3 of those resolutions are related to either the authorization or execution of grants. So we ask for your support on those. Over the last couple of weeks, I've attended several informative department head meetings with Supervisor Leggett, and it's been extremely valuable, well worth our time and effort, and I appreciate Supervisor Leggett for organizing those in advance of budget sessions. Greatly appreciated. Our next committee meeting is this coming Monday at 9 a.m. Thank you.
Supervisor Dickinson, Oxy Tax.
I hope I can get through this. You're going in and out. There are 2 resolutions that came out of OCTAX, 406, 407. I, at the appropriate time, would like to table 406. Other than that, that's all we have. Thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Molino, Tourism Park Operations.
Thank you, Chairman. Tourism is, you have in your packet 410 to authorize the tourism fund enter into agreement with the state of development of matching funds. And 411 is authorizing the agreement for off-house printing for winter brochures, 30,000 at $8,290. We're working on the budget for 2023, and the tourism will meet Monday at 10:40. Thank you.
Supervisor Stroud, legislate rules and government operations.
Thank you. There's two resolutions that came out of legislative rules and government operations. 404 and 405. They're both related to expenditures needed by our Board of Elections. 404 is for Clear Ballot Group to provide clear count, clear audit software and software reporting for the Board of Elections. And 405 is money for Dominion Voting Systems Corporation to provide repairs to the Dominion ICE accessible voting machines for the Board of Elections. And that's it from me. Thank you.
And before I move on to the county administrator, I'd like to mention that 5 bargaining units have reached out to the county to set up discussions about the increase that we gave to the CSA. These other bargaining units would like to meet, and we're going to try to schedule meetings for September. And also, I'm going to ask Supervisor Leggett to just talk a little bit about Supervisor Runyon's tragic fire that they had up in Thurman. She and her partner was severely burnt in the fire, and they're lost everything in their home. So I'll ask acting Supervisor Administrator Leggett to talk about that and about Supervisor Runyon.
Thank you. I saw Supervisor Runyon yesterday. She's doing well. As you know, this is a very intense time. And her partner is coming along better, but has suffered severe injuries as well. So hearts and prayers to him and on his healing and going through there. Readjusting to creating a new home and getting all of that is an incredible job, let's call it, that there's a lot to be done. So please excuse her absence here today. And otherwise, she's a very strong woman, very determined, and is coming through this very well, but for all things considered. So appreciates all of your support. Thank you.
Your administrator report.
And for the administrator report, I took office as acting administrator here on August 3rd. Christy Miller, the assistant, had set up appointments with department heads. Tammy DiLorenzo and I, the assistant to the county administrator, along with the respective oversight committee chairs. When possible, we met with 23 departments to date. The meeting's purpose is to get a better understanding of those departments and their programs and needs, and to meet the staff. And it's been very informative. It's been very rich, and thank you for everybody that's hosted us and for all the chairpersons that have been able to attend. We started the budget review process. I sat in on those. As Budget Officer Thomas has said, we've gone through 9 departments so far and many more to go. Sat in on the ARPA committee meeting as well, and sat in on healthcare mental hygiene workers bonus program set up by Director Janelle Jones and the Health Services. You have a floor resolution number 1 regarding that program before you today. I want to give special thanks here to Communications Director Lehman for his weekly news roundup. We all get those in our mailboxes on every week. And those give a good sense of what the county is doing. I think it's a very good program that was started and is informative for us here as we sit with these items day to day, and for the public to see what the county is doing. Attended the Summer Youth Employment Program picnic and said a few words after Chairman Garrity. And he, as he says, that was really an inspiring time to see all these kids. Supervisor Hogan, Bramer, Driscoll, and Stroud were there as well. Thank you, supervisors. That's the end of my report.
Okay, report of county attorney.
Good morning. Thank you. On July 29th of 2022, I gave a full litigation report to the entire board. So my report today is limited, and I will have a more full litigation report at the board meeting on September 1st. The 2 brief topics. One, yesterday I had the privilege to serve as a hearing officer for a Section 75 civil service action for Washington County. I did that pursuant to a 2011 resolution that Warren County enacted for Washington County and Warren County to assist each other when possible with the position of hearing officer for Section 75 proceedings. Additionally, I guess that we would say Warren County has built up a little bit of a debt toward Washington County over the years, meaning they've served as hearing officers on a number of matters over the past few years that I was not necessarily aware of when I started. So yesterday was the start of working down that accumulated debt so that we can be more on parity going forward and start using each other when needed as hearing officers in the future. The second item is more of a gentle request. And I would ask if there's any possibility, or at the first possibility, that the board and the appropriate committee move forward with members and the appointment of new members for the Board of Ethics. There are some matters that need to be submitted, and they cannot be submitted until we have a newly constituted board under the new policy. I know there's been some turnover with our administrator, prior administrator leaving. My hope is that we can move forward, even if it's in multiple resolutions, just to get the core primary members in place. We don't necessarily need a full slate of alternates, but just enough so that we can schedule an initial meeting to get the ball rolling again after a couple of months of tweaking the composition. That's my entirety of the report and subject to any questions. Thank you.
And if I've asked Supervisor Thomas to take up the Ethics Committee members, so he'll do that. Now, is there any other supervisor who would like to discuss any of the committee reports? Supervisor McGowan. real quick.
No, I guess, maybe I should wait to the, when we talk about the proposed resolutions, right?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
We'll go to reading of communications.
From Warren County Board of Supervisors or Washington County Board of Supervisors, we have resolution number 162 adopting Adirondack Community College budget, and 163 appointing member of the counties of Warren, Washington Industrial Development Agency and Civic Development Corporation. From the city of Glens Falls, there's a copy of a letter to the Warren County Board of Elections regarding city of Glens Falls mandatory referendum on the redrawing of ward division boundaries. From the New York State Parks, Recreation and Historic Preservation, we have a letter regarding a National Register application for 3 Squares Historic District. And from Fitzgerald Morris Baker Firth, we have a notice of corrected pilot agreement for 407 Big Bay Road LLC in the town of Queensbury.
Reading of resolutions.
Resolution numbers 386 through 427 were distributed to the members of the Board of Supervisors and posted to the Warren County website on Tuesday, August 16th, 2022, which met the deadline specified in the rules of the board. 2 proclamations were also distributed with the resolution. Those are proclamation 31, Immunization Awareness Month, and 32, Women's Equality Day. There's one floor resolution before you, which was not approved by committee, and that will require a waiving of the rules. So you need a motion to waive the rules.
Do we have a motion to waive the rules? Supervisor McGowan, do we have a second by Supervisor Driscoll? Any discussion on waiving rules? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carry.
Okay, so the resolution waiving the rules is going to be 428. You now need a motion to bring floor resolution number 1 to the floor.
Do we have a motion to bring floor resolution 1 by Supervisor Strauss, second by Supervisor Thomas? Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carry.
Floor resolution number 1 is now resolution 429. That's it.
All right, discussion and public comment on proposed resolutions. Supervisor Strauss.
Yeah,
Supervisor Strauss.
and have
We can't hear you.
asked to table 406. And it sounds appropriate. And I'd like to table 407. I think that needs further investigation as well. Which, if everyone's inclined to do that, That would lead to tabling of 427, which is the allocation of funding for 406 and 407.
Chairman,
You want to, yes, Dennis,
so I'll second that.
you want to withdraw those resolutions? Is that what you want? Or you want to, if you table, if they stay the same, you want to withdraw them at this time?
I'm satisfied with tabling, but I don't know what his resolution was.
I'm satisfied with tabling.
You want, you make a motion to table?
Good.
Do we have a second? By Dennis.
I second that. Yes.
Discussion on tabling 406 and 407
And 420.
and 427. No discussion, do we vote? All right, let's vote. Supervisor McGowan.
Yes, I would just like to thank Supervisor Stroud and Supervisor Dixon for because I've gotten a few phone calls on that myself that were just a little concerning. So I'm happy that they were tabled so we can review it further. I happen to have missed that meeting. I was out of town, so
Thank you.
I would look forward to it in the future.
All right, let's vote.
To the next meeting or the?
Are we tabling to next meeting or what are you tabling it to, John?
Definitely.
I think
Back-
tabling it.
Bring it back to
Hold on,
committee.
I'm speaking to Supervisor Stroud.
Yeah, let's bring it back to committee. So after the next committee meeting on those topics,
It's going back to committee.
yeah.
You table back to committee. We have vote.
Yep, you need to vote.
We'll vote. All those in favor of tabling, signify by
Mr.
saying,
Chairman, I still have a comment
who's that?
right here,
Oh, I'm sorry.
right in front of you.
I think I can hear him.
Okay. I'm down to 205, but I'm still pretty big. I'm glad we're tabling these two resolutions. They were three. They weren't vetted correctly. They weren't thought out. And there's been a lot of pushback from constituents that I know that are really questioning the merits of them. So tabling it is the minimum action we should be doing. Probably scrapping them all together would be a better option, but at least it's going to go back to committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Let's vote. You've already had,
Oh, all right.
we're gonna vote on tabling these three resolutions. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carried. Okay, now discussion on further resolutions. Supervisor McGowan.
Yes, 416. I'm still a little confused and after hearing the comments earlier. I'd like to share my concerns of the process and everything that has transpired. This has kind of been a hot one for a couple months, so I will be voting no on this. But I would like to see if I could get some support to pull this back so it can be further vetted.
Was that a motion to table?
I see no,
I guess I can take a motion to table, yes. I just didn't know.
are you making a motion to
I'll
table?
make a motion to table this one.
Okay, do we have a second on the motion to table? it? Supervisor Bruno, do you want to make a motion to table it?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's vote.
Kevin, is there any,
Supervisor.
yeah, is there discussion?
Okay, we have a motion to table. We're gonna do the discussion.
This is ridiculous. This is the motion to hire Al Snow. Contrary to what somebody said earlier, we vetted Al Snow a long time ago. The first go.
People's names in public.
So we vetted this candidate a long time ago. He came right to the top of the list. There were only two of them on the second go around, one of whom has now left the employ. So he's the candidate. He's the guy we want to get on board. We haven't had anybody at the head of tourism for months, and we really need to get somebody there. The business community at home is up in arms about this, and they can't wait to get him on board. The only reason we tabled those other three resolutions was
Dennis, if we're gonna get into specifics on a person, we should go into executive session.
I'm not talking about anybody. I'm talking about the resolutions.
Okay.
the 406 and 407, whatever the other one was, are tabled so that hopefully whoever we hire to head the tourism department's going to have a chance to look at those and have some input on them. That's all. We're not against them. They came out of my committee. They were good proposals, but I think it was appropriate for the tourism head to be able to look at them and be able to give us his opinion about these things. That's all. There's nothing about not hiring somebody. We vetted somebody. We're ready to hire. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Moreno.
Yeah, I have to agree with Mr. Dickinson, tabling this resolution for a new director of tourism and postponing it another month or two is getting tougher and tougher for the committee to work. We're here all to support the committee, support the business people, and get out information to the world about our county. And I.
Mr. Chairman.
Which point of order?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My point of order is that this discussion is on tabling the resolution. This is not about the appointment of an individual. This is not about our business community. This is not about the multitude of other things that have been brought up. Discussion right now is about tabling this resolution, which is before us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I continue now? Sure. Thank you. And I just feel we should move ahead with it, or let's have a roll call vote. I overruled.
Well, you gotta say that, I think, Mr. Chairman.
I overruled the point. We're gonna talk about the resolution.
I'd like to have a roll call vote on that.
We will.
No, on your appeal, on your
Okay.
overruling.
Let's do a roll call vote on my appeal.
I mean, I thought,
So we're voting on whether your appeal is correct or not?
Yes.
Okay.
What's the appeal?
Whether I can allow Mr. Molino to talk the way he wants to talk or listen to Supervisor Seaver and cut down the discussion.
Excuse me, it's just so it's germane to the resolution before.
Germane to the resolution.
Mr. Wild,
I'm not sure how to vote. So if I vote yes, I agree with the chairman,
that's how I would take it.
Yes.
and then I vote yes.
Mr. McGowan,
No.
Ms. Seaver,
No.
Mr. Beatty,
no,
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
absent, Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett.
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
No.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
no,
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Drossy,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan. No. Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Molino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
I'll abstain from voting.
We have 558 votes in favor, so.
Continue, Mr. Molino.
I said my piece. I think, if going to, tabling of this for another month or two, it's gonna just stymie the operation more. And that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you. I just wanted to submit that I do not think that referring to somebody's motion as ridiculous fosters good debate. I think we should maybe work on that a
Thank
little
you.
harder.
Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just want to reaffirm what the prior chair people mentioned about the business community. I've heard from the business community, tourism is a big part of our economy. It's a big part of Warren County budget. And we need to have someone at the helm of this ship. This person was vetted. Please don't table it because all it does is slow us down moving forward to the next seasons. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Bramer.
On the point of the candidate being vetted, I don't believe that the candidate, well, I know because I'm on that committee, that the candidate never actually came here to an in-person meeting. And furthermore, it's my understanding that the candidate's references were not checked. I will be supporting tabling at this time.
Let's vote.
Voting on the motion to table.
We have a motion to table.
Mr. Wild,
No.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty.
yes,
Mr. Thomas,
No.
Mr. Conover,
No.
Mr. Leggett,
No.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
No.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
yes,
Mr. Driscoll. Oh. Mrs. Frazier,
No.
Mr. Drossy,
No.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
No.
Mr. Merlino,
yes,
You on table?
No, I'm sorry, wrong way. I'm sorry. You're getting me confused here. No.
Mr. Stroud,
No.
Chairman Garrity.
No.
Okay, there are only 424 votes in favor, so the motion to table fails.
We'll move on. Any discussion on any other resolutions? Supervisor Bramer.
I would like to make a motion to table 419. I think the appropriate place to send it would be the ARPA committee to look for a replacement for Mr. Biddle's spot on that committee.
We have a motion to table by Supervisor Bramer
I'll second.
to go back to committee. Is that what you want to do?
Yes,
Table to go back to committee.
thank you.
We have a second to table to go back to committee by Supervisor Hogan. Discussion on resolution. Supervisor Thomas.
I don't think it should be tabled. I think it should be amended. I think the administrator or acting administrator is in place. Whether it's Mr. Liggett or whoever it may be in the future. I think if Ms. Rogers doesn't want to be part of it. I made that specific comment before we voted on this in personnel, that we're appointing somebody that we haven't confirmed wants to be on this board. So I think the resolution should be amended and we appoint the acting administrator or administrator as the case may be. And then we can do whatever.
Okay, so we have a motion to table, we have a motion to amend. Do we have a second to amend? Does somebody want to make?
Well, I think Chairman, we should probably.
Oh,
Got to vote on the table first.
all right. We have a motion to table. We'll vote on a motion to table.
Discussion?
On the motion to table.
Any more discussion on motion to table? Supervisor Driscoll.
I apologize for having to step out. Are we talking about both of the appointments or just one?
Supervisor Bramer, you might clarify?
Thank you. It's just Ms. Rogers. If we want to amend, I'm amenable to that. And just leave that vacant for now until we can bring up through committee another person.
So are you withdrawing the motion to table?
I will withdraw and make a motion to amend.
Okay. All right, let's get, you gotta get the, do we need to vote on that?
No, if we're.
Okay, we have a motion to amend.
The motion. to
That-
table is-
Motion to table has been withdrawn. You're making a motion to amend the resolution 419 to appoint the administrator or acting administrator and search for a new person for the other position. Is that?
Well, I think we would just leave it vacant, the spot.
Leave
vacant.
Trish Rogers would be
Yeah.
basic. We have that motion. Ms. Hogan, do you second that motion? Okay, we have a motion and a second by Ms. Let's vote. Do you have more discussion on it?
Could I just,
Ben, please?
just to be certain that we're understanding Miss Rogers, she's been a colleague and a friend for a number of years. It's not that she doesn't want to do it. She accepted a huge job and I give her credit for recognizing that she has duties and obligations to the chamber. So I think that eventually she would have liked to, but it's just too much for right now. And I appreciate her honesty.
Thank you. Supervisor Wild, Supervisor Seaver, and then Supervisor Thomas. In order.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just to conserve some time, what I'd like to do is offer another amendment to have the terms end at the end of this year. We've been at ARPA for probably nearly a year now. Although there's been some great progress, we also, in my mind, could move faster on what we need to do. And to be honest, there are different opinions on this committee, which is always good, but we tend to get caught up in, let's call it politics. And I'd like to see this board review these community assignments at the end of the year. To say, are we making the progress we need to make? And do we need to make some changes? It's not a slap against anyone that's on that committee or who leads that committee. It's more or less, let's drive the results and get this done by the end of the year is what my sense is. So if there's anyone else that would entertain that, I'd appreciate that.
Ms. Seaver, you wanted to discuss?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is a resolution on the floor, and I'd like to speak only to the resolution that's on the floor. That resolution, today you have members of the public that are ARPA standing committee members. I think we're confusing ARPA with an advisory committee. They are standing committee members. Their opinions and their voices are consistently ignored by this body. And I don't understand why, when there's significant debate and time and effort that goes into our ARPA meetings, when we forward a resolution to personnel and now to the full board, we're changing what the ARPA committee had recommended. This is just another example of how we don't listen to our committees. And yet I hear every time we are here about committee assignments and the right of listening to what goes through committee, but we're doing the exact opposite today. I would ask that you defer to members of the committee. And I'm opposed to this amendment. And I hope that it just goes back to committee. Let's be respectful of the members of the public that we have appointed to be legitimate standing committee members.
Supervisor Thomas.
Yes, as far as Ms. Rogers, I would fully support her being on this committee. I think at the appropriate time, maybe the end of September, into October, if she so desires, I would be happy to support her nomination to this committee.
Now, what do we-
So, well, the motion on the floor is to amend this to change Trisha Rogers.
We're gonna vote on a motion to change Trisha Rogers' appointment to vacant. Roll call vote.
Mr. Wild,
I'm sorry.
we're voting on the motion to amend 419 to change the line that says Trisha Rogers, ARCC to vacant.
That's true. I accept that.
Mr. McGowan,
Oh, sorry.
we're voting on the motion to amend resolution 419 to change the line that says Trisha Rogers to vacant. Are you in favor or opposed?
I'm in favor.
Ms. Seaver,
Opposed.
Mr. Beatty,
So we're changing just specifically that part of the resolution.
Yep.
I'm okay with that.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Drossy,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. So the resolution 419 is now amended.
Supervisor Seaver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Resolution 416 was discussed as it related to tabling, but it was not discussed as it related to the appointment of a new tourism director. And what I would like to do is, I have comments regarding my vote on 416. And because we didn't discuss them, I'd like to move forward with those comments. Thank you. As it relates to the appointment of a tourism director, I believe that the process was in fact flawed. I do believe that we have attempted this twice now, and both times we've continued to see major flaws within the process. I also am very concerned that we did not have a discussion regarding salary. When we initially went out for this position, there was a salary range. During the process of vetting different candidates and having interviews in the first round, we were told that the candidates were acceptable to the salary range. What I have since come to learn during the personnel meeting on August 10th at approximately 10:50 a.m. is that in fact, we were pushing through a candidate at a salary level equivalent to the prior tourism director who was here, I don't know, 30 years, I don't know how many years, but decades. So now we're bringing on a brand new employee at the exiting salary level, or at least 10,000 more than what our salary range was. It is, the only thing I could possibly think of is that it avoided another committee vote and avoided another contentious discussion about this position. So putting aside the fact that I think we're supposed to be good stewards of the taxpayer money and that we're giving more money to someone than what they were even comfortable getting without any discussion in committee or discussion by finance, and we're here today without even talking about his salary. I'm very, very concerned about the message we have sent to our constituents and to our residents. We've talked about this gentleman in public without notifying other candidates. They weren't being considered. We haven't been consistent with our application process. And it sits before us that to me, it's completely unacceptable for the residents of our communities. And I am representing Queensbury here today with a strong no vote, and I would hope that other people consider the problems that are before us with the hiring of this position. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussions on resolutions? Supervisor Hope.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call on 416, please?
Sure.
And on 417?
Sure.
Not a roll call. That's already a roll call. I just want to say that I am in support of 417 very much. Making adjustments to salaries is a really important step to retaining really excellent employees that we have. But I just want to say that that's not the end of it. What I also heard our employees say was that we have a culture problem here. And I would like to see this administration put some serious work into examining those statements that were made and taking corrective action. Thank you.
Anybody else? Supervisor Bruno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With regard to 416 and that position, is that subject to a probationary period when that person is appointed?
I think everybody is so subject to probationary period. Yeah, I believe they are. I can't answer
Well,
that.
also this resolution is, I believe it's at the pleasure of the board, which means it doesn't have a term. And
It's an at-will appointment, our board, and
if you don't want, you want to appoint them.
I guess you could remove.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lynn.
The position is appointed by the Board of Supervisors and the individual serves at the pleasure of the Board of Supervisors. There's no term for the appointment because none is required by statute as compared to some other appointed positions. So I don't know that you would call it a probationary period per se.
Right.
Because the individual serves at the pleasure of the board.
Thank you.
Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chairman. After confirmation from the county attorney, I will be abstaining from resolution 417.
Any other discussion on resolution? Supervisor Bramer? And
It's on
Supervisor-
417, 18, 417 and 18. I know that this came through the Personnel Committee as one resolution or one table, and it's now broken out into two. I had asked a couple of times at different committee meetings about removing the electeds, and it seems like now we are putting out a proposed local law, so we'll have a public hearing on, and we do have two of our county elected officials on that list to receive these automatic raises. I disagree with doing that. Just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you. Supervisor Rain David.
I just want to talk to 416 if I can.
Sure.
Yeah, this process has gone on too long. It does not reflect well on government and the efficiency of government. I was in the tourism office yesterday. They need help. They need a leader to be put in place. It's time to move and actually put someone in that office that can lead the charge. So what is happening right now does not reflect positively on the way we go about hiring department heads. Gone on much too long, and we need to move.
Yeah. Don, is there any public comment?
We're not going.
Hi, Chairman Garrity. There was a comment early on, doesn't have a lot of context from Patrick Bent that says it happens more often than not, especially with deputy positions. That was early in the meeting and there's no clarification there. So that's it.
Supervisor, did you have more discussion on resolutions?
I did. I'm sorry. I thought we were following the protocol of staying on one resolution, then debating and closing and going to the next, but that's fine that we're not. I do have comments and action that I'd like to propose on together 417 and 425, and then respectfully 422 and 388. I can take one at a time if you prefer.
Go ahead.
Thank you. As it relates to 420 or 417, excuse me, and 425, that's the personnel and hire admin about the raises for salary increases. I would like to ask our colleagues here to consider a previous amendment to that was made by Supervisor from Glens Falls, who serves on the Personnel Committee, which was to remove our elected officials from that list. That was really not talked about at length in committee, focused on a different part of that discussion. But here today, I think as elected sitting around this table, we've all agreed that we do not want to be considered for any type of increases. But we do have several elected officials in that list on 417 and 425 who ran for office, knew what the salary was. And frankly, we should be honest with our taxpayers. We know what the salaries are. That's what it should be for our elected officials. I fully support the increases for the other individuals, but I would like to see us remove the elected officials from 417 and 425. And I'm wondering if there's support for that on the board.
I'd second that.
Is which elected official is in 417?
Any elected.
Any elected officials, or is it on do I have the wrong resolution number that I'm
I thought we broke
referencing?
them up, so there wouldn't any included. So
If I can ask the clerk just to give me the right resolution number.
417, we removed the electeds from because
Okay.
they're on the local law, which is 418.
So 418 is where I'll find any elected officials.
Yeah, I believe
When I looked at the list of 418, though, I didn't see elected on that.
that's 418 has them. It has the county clerk and the county treasurer listed. They were on 417, but we removed all of the positions that were listed in the
Okay.
local law form 417, and they're only
Thank
on the
you.
local law.
So it would be an amendment to 418, but I think I'm still correct with the 425, which is the financing that supports the 418, right? Tammy?
Like her.
The money is.
Go ahead, Tim.
I better move to a microphone.
Oh.
Thank you. So the resolution as it's presented does
Right.
include anybody that was on that list. However, the money is coming from the unappropriated surplus.
Uh-huh.
So when that's appropriated, any monies that are not spent falls back down. So there really is no, I mean, we could amend the monies, but in the
Doesn't
end,
affect.
it wouldn't.
Okay. So I just need to ask for an amendment to 418 to remove the county clerk and the county treasurer due to the fact they're both elected positions.
That would be correct. Thank you.
Okay. So that would be my, if Supervisor Beatty agrees to the amendment of 418.
I agree.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second discussion on amending 418. I saw some hands up here. Supervisor Diamond, did you have?
I was gonna defer my comments on 416 to the roll call vote.
Supervisor Stroud?
It's, I know that the county's a different animal. But on the town level, anytime we're gonna propose a salary increase for elected officials that is listed as part of our budget process, and it allows for a public hearing. And then the town board, following a public hearing, will vote whether they favor the salary increases to elected officials or not. So there's a process that's separate from your normal employees as to elected officials, at least on the town level. And I asked Rob to look into this and he said he would, and I don't know what the outcome was. So, surprisingly, I might agree with one of my other supervisors from the town of Queensbury.
Chairman?
Go ahead.
Just to directly respond to the legal question that's being posed by the supervisor from Queensbury. That's the reason that the original resolution was broken into two. So the local law portion, which is 419 is complying with exactly what the supervisor from Queensbury just said. Originally, they were all put in one as a resolution to go before the board. But 419 is not, and please correct me if I'm wrong as I look to the clerk. 418 is not being voted on today for purposes of approving, but for purposes of setting a hearing,
Oh, yeah.
a public hearing on September 1st as to the individuals that are listed in Resolution 418 of 22.
All right, then,
We have a public hearing on that day.
yeah, all right. Thank you for that clarification. That's very important.
May I ask for a
Super.
point of clarification then on that? For 418, then, once we vote on this today, it freezes. This goes to a public hearing, but
Moving
what
it.
we've agreed freezes today. So my point in asking for the amendment is to remove the elected. But if we're gonna have the clerk and the treasurer, what I don't understand then is the DA is elected and the sheriff is elected. So if you're including elected, where are the other elected? Why did you only pick two?
And that is certainly not a question that's clearly above my pay grade. My point was merely that this is a process question. You do want this resolution to read and the local law to read how you want it to read when it's voted on, or at least considered at the public hearing on September 1st. Because the amendments you do today are important amendments, because that's the local law that then will be published for the public in the public hearing on September 1st. My point was merely clarifying that the reason there's two resolutions was because, as the supervisor from Queensberry said, you need a local law with certain individuals, and that's what 418 is. And that's why it was divided into two. I'm the county attorney. I have no information on who's in it, why, what, the amounts, only the process and procedure we're using, and why this was split from one resolution into one resolution and another to set a public hearing.
So could someone answer that question then?
What's that?
Could someone answer the question on why the other two elected are not in this?
Well, yeah, go ahead.
So the DA is not in these because the DA's salary is dictated by the state. That's elected, but the county has no control over that
Okay.
salary. Where for the treasurer and the county clerk, they're elected, but the board sets their salaries. So that's why they're in the local law. The sheriff is not on this because we didn't do anything for any sheriff units yet. It seemed kind of out of place to put the sheriff on here, but not any of the sheriff's union or staff. They're not on any of these resolutions yet because all of their requests just came in. They're all going to be addressed together probably next month. We would have had just the sheriff on here, but none of the sheriff's staff. There's no sheriff staff in the other resolution.
A large number of the sheriff's staff are union members, and those unions have requested to restart negotiations.
So if in a sense, correct me if I'm wrong, Larry, but if we do come back and decide to change the sheriff's salary for some reason, we would have to amend this local law again. Because it's not the start of a new term.
Yes.
So somebody had a question. Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you. I was sort of taken back by Ms. Allen's statement that there isn't anyone from the sheriff. So we have no non-union sheriff employees whatsoever at all.
We do, but they're not in this resolution.
Resolution.
Three, I think.
In the one with the employees, not the one about the local law.
Yeah, neither of them. There's no increases for anyone who works for the sheriff's office have been approved. They're all gonna come in together when you consider the sheriff's union, basically. And then the few non-union that they have would be addressed at the same time.
There aren't many people in that position, but the approach was to do them all together.
Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chairman, and I will be brief. Regarding resolutions 388
Wait a
and
minute,
389.
we're talking on before.
Oh, no. We're
This
not.
is relevant.
Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you.
Okay.
Given the confusion, I realize we have a motion to amend on the floor, but given the confusion, I'm wondering if my colleague from Queensbury would be willing to change it to a motion to table. There just doesn't seem to be any clarity here. I think it needs to go back to committee.
Here's my.
Mr. Chair,
may I
point of order. We've got this book last year, Robert's Rules of Order. When there's a motion to table, there is no debate. It's supposed to be addressed immediately,
We allow it.
right? Unless we allow it.
We've allowed it.
Yeah, our rules will allow motion and
We allow-
discussion on a motion. to
Our,
table.
our individual rules, so we don't follow this.
Yeah.
Right.
Our
Okay,
rules of
we-
board take precedent over Robert's. rules.
We have a question for Supervisor Hogan to the chair about should we table this road? Supervisor Seaver.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to respond to the question on the floor before us. My concern, supervisor from Johnsburg, is that by doing a motion to table, should that pass, my fear is that it will negatively impact so many department heads that have worked incredibly hard, have brought this in front of us, and have seen adjustments in other areas, just as I would support the other unions to come forward and have those discussions, especially it concerns me about law enforcement not being on here. But I just think fair is fair. So if we're going to have two elected on this, at least to have the sheriff.
Point of order, Supervisor.
I thought we were talking about amending
four eighteen.
We are talking about.
Not about tabling four eighteen.
We didn't talk
Let's
about
do one thing at a
Was
time
posed
here.
to me about tabling supervisor from Stony Creek. The question was specific about a request to table if I would agree to it. That is why I'm answering it, the supervisor from Stony Creek. At this-
We're out of order here because we're not
All right,
talking
let's go.
about the agenda.
My result of that was to say I withdraw the request to amend if anyone would be polite enough to let me finish the sentence. I would like to make a motion to withdraw the request to amend, given the information that's before us today, and I hope for further clarity by the time it's in front of us for next month. But I am not in favor of, I appreciate the compromise, but of changing my resolution.
So you're withdrawing your motion to.
I would like to, if I'd be permitted.
Sure. Do we have that second to withdraw Supervisor Seaver's motion to amend?
Mr. Beatty.
Mr. Beatty?
I agree with that.
Okay, all right. Let's continue. Any other votes on any other resolutions? Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you very much. I would like to draw people's attention to Resolution 388, which is about the ARPA resolution. As we heard, maybe you read somewhere, there was a resolution that came out of our committee to appropriate $4 million of our $12 million ARPA money to these two very important projects having to do with culvert and bridge repairs for our two communities, Stony Creek and Queensberry. And while I think that these are very important projects, they need to get done. They are emergency situations that we did not have budgeted. I certainly appreciate all of that and I understand. I also know that we have a fairly healthy fund balance. The treasurer wouldn't like me to say that we do, but I know that we have enough to take out of there $1.5 million to make sure that we fund this and to only use $2 million of ARPA money. I am asking for this compromise position. I know that it was tried in the ARPA committee at that last meeting to split the funding, so it's only $2 million out of ARPA, and it was a tied vote, so it didn't carry enough votes to go forward, but it was a tie through our committee. There was definitely healthy debate about it, and I would like to have that debate here. I really think it's important that we preserve as much of the ARPA money as we can for the other purposes that ARPA is set forth. I know it includes roads and infrastructure projects, which are very important to our county. I also think that knowing all of these projects that we have before us from all these not-for-profits that are doing really great things in our community that we otherwise wouldn't be able to fund, that we should try to find and bring back this $1.5 million back to the ARPA committee funding. So I'd like to make a motion to amend Resolution 388. I think it would impact one other resolution towards the end. Resolution 388.
388 by Supervisor Bramer. Do we have a second to amend 388? Is that by Supervisor Hogan?
Yes.
Discussion on amending 388.
Just if I may, Chairman, to be clear, it would still be allocating $2 million.
Supervisor Stroud.
Our fund balance is not sufficient. I think it's on the low side. I've always advocated for more. And those people that understand the timing of your revenues, the dependency on sales tax and your cash flow, those people that understand that will realize that our fund balance is on the low side right now. I would not want to damage it any further. Thank you.
Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you. I support the supervisor from Glens Falls in this motion. When I attended the ARPA committee, particularly this last time, I was really struck by the number of requests for mental health initiatives. That went, if you will recall, we put out a survey. And overwhelmingly, the results of that survey came back asking the county to up our game on mental health. And frankly, there's no way the ARPA committee can commit enough money to funding those initiatives, even not completely, if we don't restore some of this money there. The other observation I'd like to make is when we ask people to pay taxes, I agree with a fund balance. A healthy fund balance gives us a warm, fuzzy feeling going into the next year. But when we ask people to pay their taxes, they give us their money to do something to make their lives better, not to sit on it. I'm not saying that's been our practice, but we need to be very, very careful. It's a fine line that we walk. Those of us that budget and do understand it, understand the fine line that it is. So please take that into consideration as well.
Supervisor Dickinson.
The ARPA committee passed this resolution of 4 million and defeated a try to have the money withdrawn. It is the pleasure of the ARPA committee to have the county have this $4 million. And I agree with Supervisor from Queensbury, Mr. Straugh. We have some serious spending ahead of us at the county that is going to make a mockery of our monies that we have saved. We have some commitments to our employees that you're talking millions and millions of dollars that we have committed to them in this coming budget, trying to catch up with the past years. No, we need this 4 million. We need it now.
Supervisor Thomas.
Yes, I would just bring to the board's attention, to date, we've done 10 resolutions this year. We're about to do number 11 for $271,322.66, which will bring our total to $3,215,746.54 of general fund balance that we have appropriated since the first of the year. So you start out with 36.6 and you take away the 3.2 and you're down to 33.4. Now, I would like to also inform the board that we have $1.8 million in a ban payment that needs to be budgeted. We have probably 1.2 to 1.3 million for the sheriff's department for pay increases. We have a countryside project that's about to come back in, and the estimate is that we'll be 1.2 to 1.4 million short on that project. And that's just what comes to my mind sitting here. So
thank you.
Just for your information.
Yeah, the resolution in question has the support, had the support of former County Administrator Moore. It has the support of the county budget officer, and it has the support of the treasurer. I'll be voting for it. Thank you. And I'll be voting against any amendment. Thank you.
Supervisor Seaver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in support of this amendment, but I want to just clarify that here today, this board decided to override the ARPA committee's request regarding membership and appointment. After they debated it and decided it was appropriate. So the fact that we're going to say here today that ARPA agreed to this, even though it was a highly debated and highly controversial topic, and talked about rescinding it because we received millions and millions of dollars of applications from our small businesses and our not-for-profits, seems completely reasonable to have that discussion by members that have been appointed to serve on such a committee. We have, in fact, if this is passed, 3.5 is in 388. 389 is in relation to the jail and asbestos, which is a direct relation to COVID. I understand that we can take 10 million and just roll it into the budget because that's what this board decides they want to do. From the get-go, this board has said that they want to use this on roads. We went out to our community, we asked them what they wanted. They came back and they told us they're concerned about mental health. They're concerned about small businesses. I am completely opposed to overriding what ARPA has talked about, but you're doing it in other areas. I would like to see it completely rescinded, but I would be willing to compromise because $1.5 million for whatever you're proposing, Supervisor Bramer, makes a huge difference in Warren County, New York. And we should put that money right back into our community in the once in a lifetime opportunity we have.
Supervisor 388, Supervisor Driscoll.
Yes, yeah, and that's, I apologize. That's where I was going before I jumped the gun. Oftentimes on resolutions, I rely and speak to my colleagues. But other times I reach out and look into the community, and I read a very passionate email from one of the members of the ARPA committee who's not an elected official. And it hit home, as you know, where my passion lies. And I think Supervisor Hogan was correct in the fact that the community has a lot of needs, and I'm not certainly saying that the infrastructure work isn't necessary. For me, it's a decision of where the money comes from. Not that the work gets done. Work should have been done yesterday, but we need to get that done as soon as possible. But I would, and I've spoken to a few supervisors, I would support the compromise of the 1.5 or the 2 million, whatever is on the table, with the understanding that we've got to put on our creative fiscal hats and try to make sure that we keep that balance where it is, despite some difficult times. So I will be voting in favor of the resolution or the amendment.
Last discussion on 388, Supervisor Wild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure where to start, but let's talk about fund balance. What fund balance is a savings account, right? It's for the rainy day. It's for things that happened that were unanticipated. We've just gone through a pandemic that I'm not even sure we're totally through it yet. There's an impending recession. What we have, and the public has seen that, they've seen salary increases from maybe $12 an hour to $15 an hour plus. It's 20%. We need to do the same for our employees. It's not 20%, but it is a significant impact to the funds that the county has. We can't anticipate with this pending inflation that our revenues will continue. We just can't. We have no idea what might come up in the future. So we'll deplete that fund balance, we'll deplete it some more, and maybe there's another pandemic that comes out. And what happened last time when there was a major financial impact in this county in 2009 is that many employees were let go, services were reduced, and services reduced for years. So it's important to have this savings account. And what I would like all the supervisors to consider is to say, leave it as it is. If our sales tax and our other revenues continue to move forward, then we can transfer something back. But there's a talk about a recession happening in 2023. What will we do in 23, 24, and 25 when we don't have that fund balance? If it doesn't happen, I would gladly support bringing this back to ARPA. But now, I think we're being not considerate of all the consequences of returning this, and the consequences are long-term for the county. So please consider the fact that maybe think to yourself about whether you would support having the county be whole or ARPA be whole, which is short-term money. But short-term money that goes to some businesses that I may or may not support. And I am on that committee. And another thing, I wasn't part of the last meeting. I couldn't do that. I was out of town, but it would have failed. There wouldn't have been a tie if I was there. So I'm part of all these debates, and I would seriously request that the members of this board consider the long-term implications. I've always said ARPA funds should provide us long-term benefits. And I've always said that many of these things will maybe only be short-term that ARPA does. What we need to do is think about the long-term and the long-term fiscal ability of this county to provide the services that each and every one of our citizens enjoy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, this is a motion. We have a motion to table 388. Motion to amend 388. Further discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got mixed feelings on this. I think in the spirit of compromise, the amendment to the resolution by the chairwoman or the supervisor from Glens Falls makes sense. I spent 5 hours this past week going through 23 applications. We have 84 applications for around $23 million in ARPA. I spent 5 hours going through 23. I called 6 different people from the different organizations, having them explain why and so forth and so on. There's some real need out there. from this pandemic. And this money from the federal government, the ARPA money, was intended to help these same people and many organizations that have reached out. Now, I'm gonna spend another 20, 30, 40 hours, whatever it takes, to go through every single application and talk to the individuals to make sure that their need is real and that this money supplied by the federal government, the ARPA money, addresses those needs if we can do so. I'm a huge supporter of infrastructure in the county. I always believe that road, your taxes, every county resident's taxes pays for basic services, of which fixing a road, fixing a bridge, fixing a culvert is just one of the basic needs and responsibilities of this board to fund. So yes, we've always had emergencies come up. And yes, we always, like Supervisor from Glens Falls say, let's be creative or let's find a way, but we always find a way. So I am, in the spirit of compromise, will support the spirit of compromise in reducing the $4 million to $2 million, I believe. Is that the correct number, Supervisor from Glens Falls? Okay. And I will support the $2 million funding from ARPA to the county budget and leaving the additional $2 million in the ARPA to address the $23 million needs of 84 different organizations and businesses in Warren County. I mean, I find that almost overwhelming when I started going through these applications this week. It was absolutely overwhelming, the need out there. So in the spirit of compromise, I will support this amendment.
Okay, we need to restate the motion then, because that's incorrect, but.
So the motion is to amend resolution 388. Resolution 388 is authorizing the appropriation of $3.5 million. We would be reducing that to $2 million. That doesn't account for the other 500,000 that I think you're referring to. That's on resolution 389. That's a different resolution.
So it's 1.5 million.
Yes.
I'll support that.
Okay, let's vote. Are we ready
Just,
to vote?
could I have one more comment, please? On the amendment, thank you. It is only 1.5 million. So it's not even the full compromise that I really wanted or that others wanted, which was to remove all the money. But to my colleague from Glens Falls and to you, Mr. Beatty, who said, let's be creative in funding. I'm asking you for this amendment so that we can leave it in ARPA for now, 1.5 million. That doesn't mean we couldn't make a resolution later to take it out, but I am in contact with state officials trying to figure out if there is any other creative funding that we can use for emergency response purposes. I've already talked to the DPW superintendent. He's pursued some of those. They're just not available, but I am continuing to look. And I think that we owe the ARPA committee and our public the duty to try to find another way to pay for that money if at all possible. And for now, leave 1.5 million back in ARPA.
Can we
Thank you.
vote on the amendment
Yes.
now? Roll call vote, please.
Okay, this is on the motion to amend resolution 388 to reduce the appropriated amount from 3.5 million to 2 million. Mr. Wild,
No.
Mr. McGowan,
No.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
No.
Mr. Conover,
No.
Mr. Leggett,
No.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
No.
Mr. Drossy,
No.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
No.
Mr. Marlino,
No.
Mr. Stroud,
No.
Chairman Garrity.
No.
Yeah, the motion fails. There are 436 votes in favor.
Okay, any other discussions on any other resolution? Any other public comment? Let's vote on resolutions.
I think Don had-
Oh, Don, you have another public comment?
Yes, we have a couple different pieces of public comment here. Hold on a sec, let me get to the YouTube page. We have a comment from Gina Mincer, RE 416 discussion. Based on Ms. Seaver's comments, the tourism director is not taxpayer dollars, is paid through OT collected by those with lodging bus BUS abbreviation. So I imagine that's occupancy tax business. We also have comments from Ryan Moore. I recommend that the board consider appointing EDC President and CEO Jim Siplon to the vacant position on the ARP committee. The EDC is Warren County's official economic development arm, and it is appropriate to have their perspective on allocating remaining funding. Mr. Siplon is also willing to serve. And we also had a comment from Christine Strow, in which she wrote, "May I remind at-large Supervisor Seaver that the county attorney was hired last year at a salary approximately $20,000 higher than the county attorney who resigned that position." That is the end of public comment.
Any other public comments from, did you want, please come up and state your name for the record, please. This is on resolutions, ma'am.
Resolution, I believe 388 is what we're talking about. My name is Christine Norton. I grew up here. I am thrilled to be back in the community. I have a small business. I'm learning a lot with what you guys are doing, but with regard to this 1.5 million or the 2 million, frankly, the $4 million that is being flagged right now for the roads, the culverts, et cetera. My understanding is that this money is COVID related, specifically granted from the federal government for small businesses, non-for-profits impacted. So my request, or what I think would be appropriate, is to at least wait until you go through all 84 applications from the various businesses, because again, you know, this is the purpose of this 12.5 million. And then based on that, and based on what you believe is appropriate for these businesses, if there is money left over, then potentially consider using it for the general fund or for the culverts or for whatever. But I truly believe that it should first be used for its primary purpose.
Thank you. All right, the vote on resolutions. Oh,
Just a
we're gonna vote on
point of
resolution.
order. please.
Point of order.
Is there a request for roll calls, or could we at least have the ones that are roll calls right back to us?
Sure, are there any more?
I'd like 419, but I'm not sure if it's already on the list.
19 was,
Roll call.
here's the roll call. Yeah.
Yep, it is.
Well, no, it will be.
Yeah, nobody requested it.
Yes, Frank.
I'd like a roll call on 405.
405. Okay. Any other roll calls so we can vote? Okay,
Quick comment, this may not be allowed, but I did forget to say one thing.
sure, man.
Okay. I am a financial executive, it's by training, et cetera. So I know that money taken out of a fund is never going to go back in. Sorry.
Yeah.
I know that money that is taken out of the fund is never going to go back into the fund. So again, just hear those 84 requests, determine what's really necessary. And if there is some funding left over, then use it the other.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, any other roll calls or we're gonna vote? Okay, Amanda.
I just need 1 minute here.
Hold on, can you read that? I'm sorry. 416 was.
Or 16 is-
Please.
Yes. 416 was already. I know some of those.
Okay. All right, I think we're ready. Hey, resolution 386, making supplemental appropriations. Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Seaver, Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yeah.
Mr. Conover.
Yeah.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond.
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Seaver. I'm sorry, Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Drossy,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan, Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Marlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 387, amending Warren County budget for 2022. Mr. Wild.
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Seaver, Mr. Beatty.
Yeah.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Mr. Conover.
Yeah.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer. Yes. Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier.
Yes.
Mr. Drossy,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 388, authorizing appropriation of ARPA funds to the Warren County Department of Public Works budget. Mr. Wild.
Yes.
That's in.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
No.
Mr. Beatty,
No.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
You're voting?
Mr. Diamond,
No.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
No.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Drossy,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yeah.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 389, authorizing appropriation of ARPA funds to Warren County Department of Public Works budget to fund abatement and interior demolition work for the former jail building. Mr. Wild,
No.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
No.
Mr. Beatty,
No.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
absent, Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
I'm sorry. Which number are we?
389,
389. That's the jail.
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
No.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Drossy,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yeah.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 405. Authorizing agreement with Dominion Voting Systems. Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
I'm so sorry to do this. I have a quick question on what we just voted on. Did they require a 2/3? I just didn't hear the numbers on
No.
380 and 389.
So they don't require a 2/3. It's a simple majority. 388 had 678 in favor, 389 had 646.
Thank you very much. I apologize. I just didn't want to go out of order there. No on this. Thank you.
Mr. Beatty?
We're on 405.
Yes, sir.
Um.
Mr. Thomas,
No.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
I'm sorry, which one are we on? 405?
405.
No, I mean, yes. Sorry.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll.
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Drossy,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yeah.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
That resolution passes with 851 in favor. Resolution 412. This is amending the table of organization to create, delete positions for the Department of Social Services and Information Technology Department. This will require a 2/3 majority. Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Conover.
Yeah.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond.
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer.
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll.
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Drossy,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yeah.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
That passes with 952 votes in favor. Resolution 413, amending tables of organization and Warren County salary and compensation plan to adjust positions for the Public Defender's Office. This is only a simple majority. Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver.
Yes.
Mr. Beatty.
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Conover.
Yeah.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond.
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer.
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll.
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Drossy,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino.
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yeah.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes with 952 votes in favor. Resolution 414, amending tables of organization in Warren County salary and compensation plan to create positions for the sheriff's office. This requires a 2/3 majority vote. Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
I'm gonna say no.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Drossy,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yeah.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes with 940 votes in favor. Resolution 416, appointing Alfred Snow as Tourism Director or Director of Tourism. Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
No.
Ms. Seaver,
No.
Mr. Beatty,
No.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
No.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Abstain.
Mr. Bruno,
No.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Drossy,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes with 561 votes in favor.
Mr. Chairman. Can I take a moment to explain my no vote on resolution 416, please? Sure. Thank you. I just want to take some time and talk about the process that occurred when we were seeking to find a replacement for our tourism department. As it was mentioned earlier, there was a flaw in the process, and I have to agree with my colleague from Queensbury when she made that statement. The process began with developing criteria of a combination of experience along with education. One particular candidate did not, and I'll repeat, have the appropriate bachelor's degree to apply or be considered. Our civil service department noticed that and flagged that as an unqualified candidate. However, that application was advanced further on for review. I don't know how that got advanced. The question was raised in several committee meetings. Nobody took ownership in that process. So I'd like to fast track next to the interviewing process. It came down to two finalists. I'm not a member of the tourism committee, so I didn't participate, but from my view, this is what occurred. We had two finalists, one of them which wasn't present. The other one that was present also had their former employees sitting in on the interviewing process. I'm amazed that we would ask anybody, or I never participated myself in an interview for a position when my former employee was present. I don't know why that occurred. Maybe those that were conducting the interview did not have experience in this matter. That's the only thing that I can think of at this point in time. The next question that arose was, we have two candidates, one qualified, one unqualified. Is there a potential for litigation? I'm not asking the county attorney to speak to that. That's a question that I have, and I still haven't gotten an answer to. So it was decided after that, that we're going to change the qualifications. It's simply unheard of that you're going to modify the qualifications to meet the candidate. So when someone says that this process wasn't flawed, that's incorrect. I had an opportunity to look at both candidates, and the candidate of my choice was the candidate that has now accepted a position in New York State on the executive committee for tourism. But that particular person was not qualified to work as a tourism director in Warren County. It doesn't make any sense to me. So what I'm suggesting to the rest of my colleagues here today, take the time, do it right. Let's get it right this time and take the time, re-advertise the position and fill it. We have the time. Our tourism department is very strong. The numbers are good. We can spend another month and get it right the first time. This situation that occurred would have never occurred in 2021 under the direction of, at that point in time, our chairwoman Seaver. So my vote was no, and I wanted to explain it to the board members, and I wanted to explain it to the public, because out there in the public, there's an understanding that we do what we want because we can. This is an example of that case, and I'm totally opposed to it. So thank you.
Thank you. 417, we need to vote. Roll call.
Yes, amending table of organization and Warren County salary and compensation plan for 2022 to provide interim salary increases for non-bargaining unit employees. Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Conover.
Yeah.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
No,
Mr. Mc,
particularly the position on the second page of the 6 pages column. If you look down 3/4 of the way, it's under tourism. That's the one I'm opposed to.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Abstain.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yeah.
Mr. Drossy,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes with 871 votes in favor. Resolution 419 as amended. It's amending resolution 12 of 2022, reappointing members to the ARPA Advisory Committee to update committee membership. Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
No.
Mr. Beatty,
No.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Conover.
Yeah.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
No.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Drossy,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes with 735 votes in favor. Resolution 420, authorizing appropriation of funds from the airport repair and project reserve to fund the Department of Public Works budget to upgrade self-service fuel. Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Conover.
Yeah.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll.
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Drossy,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan, oh, she's absent, Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yeah.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes 952 votes in favor. Resolution 422, increasing capital project H390 County Bridge and Culvert Projects. Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
No.
Mr. Beatty,
No.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yeah.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
No.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
No.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Drossy,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes with 678 votes in favor. Resolution 423, establishing capital project H417 jail abatement and demolition. Mr. Wild,
No.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
No.
Mr. Beatty,
No.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Conover.
Yeah.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond.
No.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll.
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Drossy,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes with 646 votes in favor. Resolution 424, increasing capital project H394 Olmstedville Road reconstruction. Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Conover.
Yeah.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond.
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll.
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Drossy,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes with 952 votes in favor. Resolution 425, authorizing appropriation funds from the general fund, county road and road machinery unappropriated surplus accounts. Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver.
Yes.
Mr. Beatty.
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Conover.
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond.
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll.
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Drossy,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes 952 votes in favor. Resolution 426. Amending Warren County budget for 2022 for various departments within Warren County to account for revenues associated with interim salary increases. Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Ms. Seaver?
Yeah.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Drossy?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yeah.
Chairman Garrity?
Yes.
Resolution passes with 952 votes in favor. Got collective on the rest.
Collective, all those in favor of the other resolutions signify by saying aye. Opposed, carried. Privilege of the floor and any other public comments. Please step up.
Good, good morning, good afternoon, whichever way it is, it's noon. I just want to give the board kind of a quick history lesson. Supervisor Wild kind of touched on this, but I want to hit it home a little more. In 2005, Warren County had a surplus of almost $26 million. By 2009, we had under $3 million left. We were borrowing to make payroll, paying 8% interest. And there was no, and we lost over 30 jobs had to be cut in order to keep the county going. I just want, so when we say, oh, we've got more than enough money in the bank to cover ourselves, I just be very careful with that thought. Because that 26 million went real quick the last time, and our 36 million, which is actually only down to about maybe 30 million right now. And I can trim that down with the more money that we're going to need before the end of the year to about 28 million. That can disappear real fast. So just, just think about that and remember that. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
I have a comment too.
You had
Jumping in front of my colleague over there.
Go ahead.
Just on that note, the treasurer is cautioning us. I would ask the budget officer to make sure that more of us are included in the budget meeting so that we can understand what exactly is happening. I hope that we can do as well as we did last year, keeping our budget really, really tight and maybe even lowering our tax rate. I really think that we need to be careful about that. The treasurer is cautioning us. We just used $4 million of ARPA money so that we do not have to take that money out of general fund. I expect that we have a really tight budget coming up, and I know you can do that, Budget Officer Thomas, as you've done in the past. Thank you, Chairman.
Supervisor Beatty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to follow up on Supervisor Diamond's comments. I found them to be truthful, enlightening, and alarming. Alarming, you ask why? Because the process was totally flawed. And to pretend it wasn't is almost insulting. I've interviewed over 300 people. 300 people. I think that's more than everybody on the board combined. I have never, ever allowed, maybe Mr. Diamond, maybe Mr. Driscoll's interviewed as many, but I have never had a former employer sit in, ask questions, and participate on an employee, a former employee. That to me should have thrown the whole system out of whack right then. We should have scrapped everything and started over again. That is absolutely unheard of, probably illegal to the individual, if the individual decided to pursue legal means. And to anybody who think that that's a normal and correct process should be ashamed of themselves. So I don't know who authorized that, whether it was the committee chairman or the committee or the former county administrator, but that was absolutely insane to me. I'm sitting in that meeting, and there's these former employers sitting there, not only sitting in the process, but asking questions to an employee that they don't even have anything to do with. We're hiring them, not them. Good or bad, that employee could have been a standout employee. That's still wrong. That's still tainted. So I just want the public to know how the process works up here with some departments and some committees. And it's absolutely embarrassing and insulting that anyone thinks that this was a normal process. It was a sham. And I'm sorry that I'm on the board and being a part of such a board that think that that's a normal process to happen. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Any other comments? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we're still, I don't know if it's privilege of the floor or announcements, but either way, I wanted to thank the board for passing the Women's Day proclamation in front of us. And just, we go over these very quickly sometimes, but the second whereas, women are an essential part of the political, economic, and social fabric of our nation. And all American women, regardless of the role they play in the workplace or at home, contribute daily to the success of our great country. I will also note, at this point in time, I hope you all join me with thanking Kristen, who has now exited the tourism department. She has provided leadership when we've needed it. She has provided a keen attention to detail, and we have really made quite strides in the world of occupancy tax under the leadership of our chairman last year, as he was the tourism chair, who worked closely with Kristen while she was here. I am sad to see her go, and I think we should all thank her tremendously for her help. And I also just want to say, what a sad display of a spirit of compromise. It didn't happen today. I don't care if it's ARPA money, tax money, general fund money, it's all taxpayer money. And our public deserve better than what they got. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Driscoll. Oh, okay. Supervisor Tom, you're deferring to Supervisor. Supervisor Thomas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would just like to thank Supervisor Bramer for her faith in me, but I would also like to prepare the board for voting to go above the tax cap with this budget that's coming forward. You can't increase everybody's pay by $5,720 and expect that the little magic sales tax guy is going to come and take care of that. It's not going to work. So just be prepared.
Supervisor.
And again, I'll be quick, Chairman. Thank you. My friend Ray Agnew is here, and as some of the members know, I look at my definition of constituent is a little bit different. I've had the pleasure of 8 years on the city council and the last 5 years on the county board to represent the county's largest employer, Glens Falls Hospital, and Glens Falls Hospital did get it right. They hired Paul Semeka, who I've had the pleasure of working with in the past, and they hit a home run. It's a great staff down there, first class hospital, and I think it would be appropriate to reach out to Mr. Semeka at a future meeting of the Economic Development Committee or another committee, just to get him more involved in the process of county government. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Beatty?
Thank you. One final comment. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Beatty.
I just wanted to thank my colleague from Queensbury. She will be the first supervisor ever to have a PhD on the county board. And it's kind of ironic. We have a lawyer on the board who happens also to be an outstanding supervisor, female and so forth, which the last time we had a lawyer on the board, I believe, was Mr. Monroe, who did a fine job and did a great job. So having professionals like this, Dr. Seaver and Ms. Bramer, just adds to the credibility of the board. And when they say something, I usually give it extra credence. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Last word, Ms. Seaver.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you calling on me. Well, I have my hand too, but thanks. Can I go after?
Really need to go. I have someone to do real quick.
Can I just quickly?
Him and then Ms. Bramer.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Bramer, please, I'll be very brief. Supervisor Beatty, thank you so much for that recognition. I do just want to say that it is a doctorate in education and leadership. It is an EDD. I successfully published and defended my doctorate on August 10th. And I am very proud of that accomplishment. Since last year, I did put it on hold for a little bit as chair and as acting county administrator for 6 weeks. So I'm thrilled to finally reach this accomplishment. And I appreciate those well wishes. Thank you.
Last word, Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you. While we were on a roll giving out thanks, I wanted to thank the Board of Elections for undertaking all of the work for this another primary this year, and I really appreciate that, and all of the poll workers who are out there doing their jobs.
Okay, motion to adjourn. Done. Thank you. We're out of here.